All right, everyone, let's dive right in today. We're looking at grace. It's this huge concept in our sources, really positioned as the absolute bedrock of salvation. And the really interesting part, how this, unearned gift somehow connects faith and works. It's a bit of a puzzle, right? But fascinating when you start to unpack it.
It really is. And, just to frame this for our deep dive, one source really hits it home with this phrase, "Ooh, you too," which basically means salvation is by grace. And it's not just like a theological footnote. Our sources talk about it as a real rescue, a rescue from judgment, meaning only those saved by this grace get to live eternally. That's the core idea.
Okay, so let's try and unpack that a bit because, well, grace often sounds like a free pass, doesn't it? But then our sources also say God saves those who obey commandments. That feels kind of contradictory, at least on the surface. And what commandments are we talking about here? Is it the old laws or how does that work, especially if grace itself is what allows us to obey in the first place?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's where the real nuance comes in. What's really counterintuitive, I think, based on the sources, is that grace, well, it's powerful. It's offered everywhere. But it's never forced on anyone. It's given to those who actually desire it, who don't, waste it. So it kind of redefines God's love, moving it beyond just a command to like a deep respect for our choice.
Yeah, so it respects our desire.
Exactly. And these commandments aren't just a checklist of rules. It's more about aligning with God's loving will, which, as you said, our sources confirm is only possible because of grace itself. And we see that love, that profound love, most clearly through what the sources call the cross, Jesus' sacrifice. They present it as the key moment where God's justice and mercy meet, making grace available to literally everyone.
Available to everyone, but not everyone takes it. It makes me think of that Rudge analogy you sometimes see in these discussions. God throws the rope that's grace, but we have to choose to grab it. But does God already know? Does he know beforehand who's going to grab that rope? How does that fit with choice? It can still feel a bit like it's all set up.
Right. And the sources do address that, drawing on passages like in Romans chapter 9, I think, where it says God has mercy on whom he wills. They definitely state God has foreknowledge. He knows who will accept, like the Jacob and Esau story. But, and this is really crucial in the texts, this foreknowledge doesn't cancel out our individual choice. It's not like God's pulling puppet strings. It's more like an infinite awareness of how free choices will play out. The decision ultimately is still yours. And that choice is genuinely respected.
Okay, that's a very fine distinction. Divine knowledge versus human freedom.
Yeah.
So if it is all about this amazing grace, received by faith, not by works, then what happens to the law? The idea of doing good things. I mean, the sources are pretty clear, like in Galatians, that no one can keep the law perfectly by themselves. So are works just irrelevant then?
Not irrelevant, no, but their role changes completely. That's the twist. Genuine good works, according to our sources, aren't the price you pay for grace. They're more like the evidence, the unmistakable sign that grace is already at work inside you. It completely flips the usual thinking from I have to work to earn God's favor to I work because I've already received his favor. It's a huge shift in motivation.
Okay, so works as evidence, not currency.
Exactly. The sources, like Ephesians chapter 2, hammer home that salvation is a gift received through faith, definitely not earned. But they also stress, like in Romans 6, that real faith, which itself is a gift of grace, as Philippians suggests, well, it naturally bubbles up into righteous actions. It has to express itself that way. And then, if you bring in the Holy Spirit, which Acts also describes as a gift, another part of God's grace. That's what empowers believers to actually live out God's will, to fulfill the spirit of the law. So these actions, these works, they aren't about bragging rights. They're just the living proof of grace doing its thing inside you. Think of it less like a duty and more like, well, just the natural result of a heart changed by grace.
Wow, okay. So putting it all together, grace enables, faith receives or activates, and the Holy Spirit empowers. It sounds very dynamic, a continuous process almost. But what if someone resists? What if they actively reject this grace that's being offered?
Yeah, the sources have a pretty serious warning about that. If someone persistently rejects the grace offered, or if they claim faith but there's absolutely no change, no action, it suggests, that the belief isn't genuine or they've fundamentally turned away. And going back to respecting choice, God doesn't force grace on people who refuse it. If you keep pushing that rope away eventually, well, it can't save you. It really highlights how much our own desire and acceptance matter in this.
So today we've really journeyed through this rich idea of grace. It's this incredible unearned gift tied directly to Jesus' sacrifice. You receive it through faith, which is also a gift And then it shows up in a changed life powered by the Holy Spirit. It really shifts the focus from earning to responding, doesn't it? Responding to this incredible generosity. It makes you think, how often might we, maybe without realizing it, sort of waste this gift, either by doing nothing or by trying to earn what's already free? So here's something to maybe reflect on as you go about your day. If grace is freely offered, but it needs us to desire it and not waste it, what kinds of actions or even attitudes in your own life might truly show that you value such an immeasurable gift?